Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome. My name is Kay and this is Heykaybudgets. If you've ever found yourself stressing about bills or you wish you had a little more breathing room between your paychecks, you're not alone. Today we're diving into a game-changing topic, how to get 1 month ahead on your bills. This is coming from a personal follower of mine here on my channel, and she was asking very detailed logistical questions that I thought we would go ahead and record a how-to video for my little mini how-to series. So I hope that you enjoy this one and consider subscribing. Friends, I'm super excited about talking about this topic. Getting 1 month ahead on bills is like achieving financial peace of mind, or at least it is for me. So first off, let's talk about why getting 1 month ahead on your bills is such a big idea. So there are 4, I think, stress levels that get decreased and savings get increased when you do your month ahead. One is that financial cushion. You know, being a month ahead means you have a buffer for unexpected expenses, and it also helps reduce the stress. No more living paycheck to paycheck or worrying about your due dates on your bills. And some of the benefits is improved credit score, because when you start making payments a little early before they're due, you boost your credit rating. And then more financial freedom. Isn't that all what we crave? This month ahead method sort of allows you to plan for the future rather than just reacting to the present. So friends, the first thing we need to do is assess your current financial situation. Now, we've kind of gone through this in previous how-to videos, and so before we move forward, we need to understand where you stand financially. So the first thing you should do is list all of your monthly bills, and this is including all your rent, your mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, subscriptions, everything. Anything that comes out once a month. Go ahead and write it out and what you paid last month, okay? And then you're gonna calculate your total monthly expenses. So you're gonna add up all your bills to see the big picture. You're gonna determine whether your monthly income is enough to cover those expenses, right? So you're gonna add up all of the income you have for your household. You're gonna do your salary, your side gigs, any freelance work you're doing, any other consistent income, you wanna add that in. And then what you wanna do, friends, is find the gap. And that is what here in the community we do a lot with our budget worksheets. And friends, I updated my budget worksheet finally, and I love it. So you can find these new worksheets down in my freebies link in my descriptions of this video. You'll find a Google folder labeled freebies, and you'll be able to find these new monthly budget worksheets. And this is what I'm gonna be using in 2025. But this is where we find the gap, is what I'm referring it to. So it talks about, we're talking about our income, our expenses, and then whatever's left over, if you want to allocate some savings, that's the gap, right? So the savings and the sinking funds, that's what we're trying to find. We're trying to find that number. So you want to subtract your expenses from your income to see what's left. And this is a great way of identifying where you're overspending, or if you're overspending every month. So very important to do a monthly budget. All right, friends. Now let's go into creating this realistic budget that I'm talking about. So many people do a budget, but then it's not realistic, right? We have lofty goals for savings or debt payoff, but it's not really what we can manage, right? Or manage consistently long term. So that's why we budget. You want to check in on where you stand, and creating that budget will help you get there. So you want to identify your expenses, like I mentioned. So I have some essential bills, and then I have a couple of non-essential bills, like my lawn care and my subscriptions. So you want to identify those needs versus your wants. And I have wants expenses here, and this is what I call my variable expenses. Now, I don't consider groceries obviously a non-essential, or gas, but like dining out and entertainment, and then this random miscellaneous category, that's a want. You know, that's a little extra buffer that I throw in. But groceries and gas, definitely a variable. Groceries goes up and down depending on what I've got going on in the month, and so does gas, right, depending on how much I travel. And so, but it is considered part of my expenses, and I've labeled them variable expenses here in my worksheet. and bills here at the top. And so I just wanted to mention that when you're doing your budget, it's really important to create spending limits in these areas. So especially the variable. So in order to get a month ahead, you're going to need to add that line item to your budget. So maybe you put it up here in bills or variable expenses, probably here most likely. If if your needs change from month to month, you might want to adjust how your month ahead fund kind of goes. But that light item that's dedicated just to getting ahead on your bills is essential for the person who's trying to implement the 1 month ahead buffer. All right. And then you're going to adjust as needed. Your budget should be flexible. Review it weekly or monthly. And just remember that your budget isn't a restriction. It is just a plan for your money. I have done this worksheet for the month of November/December like 3 times already. So, I mean, maybe 4 times. So that's why I like the printables. I think that I'm a visual person, so I like to see everything clean and neat and laid out. And so that's kind of why I like to have these worksheets, so that I can print them and create several drafts before I have a final copy. So guys, we talked about creating also spending limits on bills, and I do want to mention that to me is called just reducing your expenses. Cutting costs is one of the fastest ways to free up your money, okay? So you want to create maybe like a little, I guess like a sheet of paper. Go get yourself some, school lined paper and create a column for before and after, and start writing all of your expenses down and see what you can do about reducing them, right? So canceling unused subscriptions, obviously a great way to free up non-essential bill money, right? So you want to reduce those non-essential bills. I mean, do you really need all those streaming services? And then the other idea is to negotiate bills. You call your service providers to negotiate those lower rates. Now, I do that once a year in January. It's a great time for me to reflect on the year past and what I can improve on the year forward. And so I like to negotiate bills once a year. And then cutting utility costs, the simple habits like turning off your lights can reduce your electricity bill like crazy, right? So to me, when I'm thinking about reducing expenses, I'm thinking also about my everyday habits. Like, am I needing, a 30-minute shower? Probably not. Do I need to run the dishwasher yet? Probably not. Do I need to run the washer and the dryer every day? Probably not. There are great tips and tricks out there to reduce your utility costs. So I would definitely do a Google search and see what works for you and your family. And then the other big item, we talked about groceries being almost a non-essential, but it is a variable expense and it is essential in a way. But what's non-essential about the grocery category is that food prices fluctuate depending on brands and obviously quality of food. And if you can't afford organic, non-GMO, farmer, raised, you might want to consider some alternatives in your grocery budget that can reduce, maybe even just for the short term till you get your month ahead done. And then try and work towards a goal of getting back to where you were spending on your groceries. So my point is that food in general, especially in dining out, you are in control of how much you spend there. So reducing those expenses can actually have huge impacts on your budget. All right, friends, so let's talk about increasing our income. Now, I do this as a habit. I've done this as a habit since I was 15 years old, and I started working for myself, creating little crafts to put in a craft fair. And it inspired that entrepreneurial spirit in me that I just never let go. I always found ways to have a little side money, make a little side money. And it didn't matter if I was, a stay-at-home mom or working full-time. It's just a habit that I've created to include side income. Now, if your cutting expenses isn't enough, let's say you're overspending every month and everything that you've got in there is essential and you're just not making enough money, then you really need to look at boosting your income. Great ideas are, any side hustles, like if you have a trade or a skill then consider freelancing, or, like I said, craft fairs if you've got, if you're crafty. If you're a teacher, consider tutoring. Driving, if you want to do Ubers or HelloFresh or, or Amazon Fresh, however it is, or do ride shares, where there's even places if you have an extra car where you can go and make money on your extra car. So you guys, there's so many different opportunities, and there is one specific website, and I can't think of it right now, where people who have sort of technical skills can go and earn side gig money, and I'll figure out that website and maybe post it up here for you. And then selling unused items. I think that's one of the greatest assets moms across the world can do, is like decluttering their home and making extra cash on the things that they're not using, right? If you're a worker, if you're full-time, is there a possibility to earn extra money with overtime, extra hours at work? Or is there a way to monetize your hobbies? Like this here, YouTube, is a great idea for anyone who wants to monetize a hobby. If you have a hobby that you just love, creating a channel is like the easiest way to make, I think, extra money. Now, it's not work. It's just enjoyable, right? Because it's your hobby. I think consistently working on a hobby like budgeting, for me, I just love it, and I don't ever see an end to it. So I would do this forever if I wanted to, right? And so consider what your hobbies are and what you could consider doing forever. Because if you enjoy your hobby and you don't think you'll ever get sick of it, then try and find ways to monetize or capitalize on that. Okay, friends, so let's talk about some saving strategies. Now, we did talk about some saving strategies in my previous video. I think it was called Prioritizing Your Money. There was a lot of information in there. In fact, one of the pieces of information was the handout on the waterfall method, and then getting, your emergency fund set up. So, but in there was also the different savings accounts, and that's really what I want to talk about next. Let's channel those extra funds, right, into a really good savings account, right? Your 1 month ahead and your emergency fund could easily go into a high yield savings account, where you're putting your money into the savings account, and because their overhead costs are really low, they're able to offer you higher percentage rates, right? So you're going to earn more money on the money that you're putting in there. So in a separate savings account, if you want to get 1 month ahead, get yourself a high yield savings account and start keeping your get ahead money separate so that you avoid spending it, okay? And then you want to automate your savings. So if you figured out your budget and you can afford to put $100, $200, $300 into your 1 month ahead, consider making that a part of your budget and automatically transferring that money on payday into that high yield savings account. And then some other ideas is, using your windfalls wisely. And by windfalls, I mean, all of a sudden you got, a couple of grand all of a sudden for something that you didn't plan for, like your tax return or a bonus at work, or you got a side income that really paid out really well 1 month. So consider saving that windfall money into this 1 month ahead or your emergency fund. That way, you're just basically creating that habit, that strategy of saving money when you get those windfalls instead of going out and spending it. Because isn't it pretty typical for us to get a bonus at work, let's say, and then you want to go on a vacation? So when you get intentional about what you're doing and you're implementing some things and you're setting some goals, you'll create some new habits so that when these windfalls show up, you're going to save them. And then the other one I wanted to mention was setting milestones, right? We talk about milestones all the time on YouTube, subscriber milestones. Well, we also need to create budget milestones, breaking down your goals into smaller, achievable steps. And one example here is in my little notebook that I have, and I've broken down my quarter check-ins. So check in often. I know that for me, I'm a visual person, so seeing it written out is really helpful to me. But I check in quarterly on a lot of things, like my month ahead goal that I set in 2024, my different savings challenges. I write in my extra income that I earned for that quarter, and how my net worth increased on all my different like retirement accounts and stuff like that. But before I started writing things down in this cute notebook, I did vision boards, and I'm kind of really interested in doing another one for 2025. And if you're a visual learner like me, a vision board is very motivational, inspiring. And I'm not sure if you've ever done one yourself, but it's quite interesting what happens when you have images of the things that you want and desire and how your behavior changes so that you can achieve attaining those things. It's amazing and very powerful. So let's talk deeper into implementing the 1 month ahead. All right, guys, we have the first steps, right? The first steps is your initiation, right? You're initiating, you're starting this, and when your funds are starting to grow, it's time to implement the 1 month ahead binder or buffer. Sorry, not binder. Now I do have a month ahead binder, but a buffer, right? So you want to, you want to start thinking about how you're going to pay next month's bills. Okay, friends, I think I'm going to do it like this. Okay, so you're essentially always going to be paying your bills ahead. And so when you do that, you need to adjust sometimes your pay dates, your bill payment dates. So you want to contact your different service providers and start aligning those dates if you need with your paychecks. A lot of people do, some bills to for like that one paycheck, they'll allot that money for the next 2 weeks, right? And so forth and so forth. But when you get a month ahead, it's really important to start bulking a lot of your bills at the beginning of the month or the end of the month, however you want to do it. But you want to look at it as being a month ahead, okay? And then you want to maintain this cycle. Continue budgeting to keep that buffer intact, right? So every month we're doing this exercise, we're budgeting, and we're looking a month ahead, and that's how we keep the buffer in our account. So let's talk about how I strategize a month ahead in the bank accounts and the savings accounts that I have, and also here at home with my cash budgeting. All right, friends, I hinted at creating a little infographic for you guys. So I will make sure to put this infographic in my freebies link as well. When you're implementing the 1 month ahead buffer, you're also needing to set your auto bills, like your bills on auto payment, okay? And I've done it 3 different ways. I've done it all electronic before, and that was when I was a super busy person, small children in hand, and there wasn't a lot of money coming in and out, but we did have debts to pay, and it was just a lot easier to pay those debts right away on payday and just there was no saving, is what I should say. There was no savings at the time. It was aggressively paying down debt. And me and my ex-husband had quite a bit of extra debt. We had student loans, we had car loans, we had a home. It was just all these things, right, friends? So when you're first starting out, that tends to be the case, right? To get yourself situated, you get yourself into debt sometimes. Well, this is going to help prevent all that. So this is currently what I'm doing. Okay, I am 100% cash budgeting and then 100% paying bills through a checking account. Now, I have a separate high yield savings account that I put money in based on what I'm doing at home with my cash budgeting. I mentioned before I'm a visual person, and part of that visual, and if you don't know what kind of learner you are, I would suggest going to a website and learning the type of learner you are. There's 3 types. There's visual, there's auditory, and there's tactile or kinesthetic, right? And so when you're cash budgeting, you're really in touch with all of these. And I should say cash budgeting on YouTube, because you're not only doing the visual part and you're touching it, but you're also recording videos and hearing yourself. And it's just an amazing trifecta, right? So this is currently how I'm doing it. And I'm choosing to do this to support the income growth on the hobby that I have. This passion project of mine here on YouTube is also an income stream. So this is how I'm choosing to do it. Now, there are 1,000,001 people out there with probably 1,000,001 ways to do things, but I just want to keep it simple for this video. The other option is to keep your checking account and your savings account, right? And then doing the cash budgeting or cash stuffing on the gap only, okay? So let's say you did your budget, you know what your bills are coming out of, right? They're all coming out here. And you are allocating, let's say month ahead, where's mine? Where's mine? I think it should be, 1 year ahead. Okay, so I budgeted $300. Well, that's going straight into the savings account. Okay, friends? So I'm just taking it out to cash budget because I'm 100% cash budgeting. But you could put that $300 in your savings account. okay? And then you're building that savings account until you get that allotted amount that you want for all of your expenses. Now for me, it's $4,000. I'm adding up my bills, I'm adding up my variable spending, and I'm adding a little bit of savings, right? And debt payments, okay? So for me, it's about $4,000. So that's what I have in the savings account. And every month I go in and I transfer at the end of the month that savings account money, that $4,000, into the checking account so that all my bills come out of the checking account, okay? And then I'm cash budgeting at home, or you could cash budget at home and keep funneling that money. That's how you're creating that habit. You're keeping up that 1 month ahead. And eventually you'll be able to just keep rolling that over, right? You're always going to be 1 month ahead because you've got 1 month ahead once. And so all you're doing is creating that habit, okay? Now, when you start saving a bunch of extra money, let's say you've got savings challenges for the cash gap, right? You could put that money in a separate high yield savings account or start using it for retirement, or however, right here, when you're prioritizing your different money, you could start funneling it into the different loans that you have. If you've already got your emergency fund set up, but if you don't, then you need to be working on your emergency fund. All right, friends, I hope that makes sense. Let's see. I want to talk about when you're setting up your auto payments for your bills, don't forget to set up calendar reminders to remind yourself to transfer that money if you are doing it digital. Or even if you're cash stuffing, don't forget to mark a day, and I would suggest a few days before the end of the month. So this is a banking holiday, so I would suggest doing all of your month ahead transfers on the 27th of this month. That way you have a couple of days buffer, and I would almost say 3 business days. So I would say business days, so 1, 2, and 3, because the bank doesn't really consider Saturday a business day, but some banks will do electronic transfers instantly or within a few days. And so give yourself plenty of time. You always want to build yourself a day or two of buffer time when you're transferring funds. But use your calendar reminders and then monitor your accounts. Never, just assume that things are coming out. Make sure you're checking in on those bills and that you're seeing them go in and you're seeing them come out. This is really important. It's the habits that you're trying to create, these good financial habits. So very important to monitor your automations, okay? I do want to briefly touch base on building the emergency fund. We did talk a lot about it in my previous video, how to prioritize your money. But your emergency fund is there as your buffer, right? In case these monthly unexpected bills come up. And expenses, even if it's $500, start small. Even if it's $500, that can make a difference. Like 2 brand new tires on my car is $500. Now that could totally throw off my budget, right? If I didn't have an emergency fund. So this to me is something that you're planning for if there was no emergencies. But if you have savings or money to save, put it in that emergency fund. Then start aiming for 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. Dave Ramsey talks about your 3 to 6 months as a baby step. So keep that money accessible but separate. So I highly encourage, again, a separate savings account or high yield savings account for your emergency fund, okay? And I think, let's see, some tips on staying ahead. Staying ahead is an ongoing process. So maintaining your progress is super important. It's a muscle that you're building, right? So regularly review your budget. If you're a visual learner, make sure that you do these sort of worksheets as your exercise. It's a visual and tactile way of helping you learn how to do this budget and adjusting for the changes in incomes and expenses. And then you want to avoid your lifestyle creep. That is another really big tip of mine. I try to keep my grocery budget so low, mostly to avoid the lifestyle inflation. Commodities are super expensive right now. They've been climbing since COVID, right? So everything's super expensive, but even though I'm making a little bit more money to accommodate for inflation, I'm not going to spend it. I'm going to try my hardest to stay within my budget. So I'm avoiding that lifestyle creep. So not increasing my spending means that my savings and my income grows, right? So setting financial goals is another good tip of mine. Having clear objectives, they keep you motivated, right? So, you know, checking in, I think my little worksheet here, my year calendar, month and year calendar, has portions for goal setting, checklists, and then I like to have this review, you know, of your wins and your challenges. And down here at the bottom is sort of like a summation of the actual numbers. So if you wanted to quickly reflect on what you rolled over, what your total income actually was, what your total expenses actually was, and then what you're moving forward into the next month, this is just a little great breakdown there. Now, friends, I will say this is all well and good, but it won't maintain if you're not celebrating your small wins. So make sure that you're celebrating your milestones. So when you achieve your month ahead, you know, do something nice for yourself. I always tend to buy savings challenges because I figure that's a good financial habit to continue saving. So buying a savings challenge kind of continues this cycle of saving. So you guys, that's all that I have for you. I hope that this video wasn't too long and that it was, I guess, motivational and meaningful to you. So there you have it, a comprehensive plan to getting 1 month ahead, right? I hope that I covered it well. Getting a month ahead on your bills is no easy task. I think it took me almost a year to do it because I had very little to save and very little in my sinking funds when I first started back to cash budgeting and starting my channel as a way to motivate myself. So just imagine the peace of mind you'll feel knowing you're not scrambling each month. So thank you so much for joining me. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who could use a financial boost. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm hoping to put out more how-to videos in the weeks to come. And don't forget to drop me a comment down below. Let me know if there are any strategies or any questions that you have. I'd love to hear from you. All right, friends, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me again, and I will see you guys tomorrow for Freebie Fridays. All right, guys, bye for now.